What's up, guys? Big Light here. I know my last few videos have been about Marvel Rivals and playing tanks and Captain America in particular, but Destiny 2 is a game that I've played for years. I have kind of an embarrassingly high number of hours in it on Steam, and I wanted to show you guys what I think is the most fun build in Destiny, hands down, and it is playable in all content. I used this this last weekend when I was farming palindromes like crazy for this specific role. If you have this one is super awesome for the build. Explosive Payload Master of Arms. So I was cranking GMs with that, carrying some, just being a team member in some. You'll see the build is really flexible with kind of weapons and ult choice and stuff like that. But let me front load the build first if you just want to see the stuff. This is a picture. You can pause right here and look at what the build is on this screen. Okay. And then going back out, I'll show you if I do this. You can see, you can pause it at any point in here and see what I have going on here as far as mods and stuff like that. But I'll get into the build and tell you exactly how it plays and what it is. You see, it is a prismatic build, and I'm using this prismatic class item that has Inmost Light and Seared Arachne. That's the key to the build. There's a really good YouTuber named Macdix that does Will It Build videos on his channel. He did one I saw one day. I call this build the Space Ninja because you're flying around throwing shurikens and all that stuff. He did one time where I saw he had this class item with Inmost Light and Seared Arachne, and I was like, oh, he's showing the Space Ninja build. Somebody finally showed it to him. And then he showed it, and he actually showed it. It's a little bit different than I play it, and a little bit different than what I'm going to show you guys. And I'm just going to tell you this is the better way. This is the correct way to play this build. It's amazing. It's super fun. But before I go over the build, I'll go over everything, tell you exactly what you're doing, what you need as far as how to play it and what to do. But before we do that, let's get into a showcase of what it can do. Let me show you running a master Lost Sector yesterday just to do stuff where I'm under-leveled by 15 levels and show you how the build plays. So this is a video from yesterday. I ran a Lost Sector. This is the exact setup that I was showing you guys. I think maybe I changed the mod on my palindrome. But what I'm showing you here is my stuff. I have that palindrome on, a Dragon's Breath, which is my favorite exotic weapon to use with the build. I have crafted call, and I'm going to go to master here, and what I'm going to show you guys is it's Void Surge and it's Strand Surge, which means the palindrome isn't even getting buffed. But there are a lot of bad guys that have arc shields in this, which makes it good. And then the explosive payload and Master of Arms traits on that palindrome make it so good that it doesn't actually matter that it's not one of the like self-buffed things. And then of course in a master, the level is 2050, so you can see I'm 15 levels under that right now. So the stuff will hit hard, but our build is designed to take advantage of that, or to deal with that. So what we're doing is we're going to go in, and the build is built around using grapple and melee. And the grapple is, because we have Seared Arachne, is going to put Woven Mail on us, which is going to give us a huge damage resistance, which allows us to go in and fight things, not just stand in the back and hide permanently when content is tough. So you can see I'm in this thing. I'm just shooting things with my palindrome. I shot my Dragon's Breath at this guy at the Hydra here, but he has... I hit the shield. It wasn't a great shot, so... we're pushing him back though, and then we're shooting the little guys, just clearing things out. We're playing it relatively safe. You can get even crazier on this build, and I do, especially in GMs and stuff, but for this one there was no need to get too crazy. So we're just getting guys killed, and then we're going to take advantage of our invisibility here. Another perk of the build is you go invisible all the time to get a good chance to put a Dragon's Breath on that guy. We see the overpower Minotaur come in, and so we throw our shurikens, which will stun and overpower. And then we get a Dragon's Breath into the group of guys there, throw some more shurikens, stunning the guy again. throwing our prismatic grenade. One of the things you get in this build is your prismatic a ton, and your supercharge is pretty fast. So you'll see that we use our prismatic a lot. It's the main way that I'm going to deal with overpowers while I'm in here. And the nice thing is you can deal with overpower and unstoppables inherently with this build. You can actually deal with barriers inherently too, because every time you melee, you use a powered melee, you get Radiant, which allows you to deal with barriers, but that's a little less reliable than the unstop and overpower thing, where when you dodge, you see we slow, so that stuns an overpower. When we throw a shuriken, it slows, which will stun an I keep saying overpower, overload. And then the unstops, if you dodge, we're using Gambler's Dodge, which will give us a charge of melee, so you can dodge and then immediately throw melee, and that will freeze an unstoppable. And then when you shoot them, you will you'll stun them. So you'll stun them and make them vulnerable, be able to kill them. So you inherently deal with all champions. The barrier one using Radiant is kind of the least reliable. The Radiant thing is our main way to buff our weapons here, though. You'll see most of the time before I start shooting, I throw a shuriken or use my grapple melee, and that's to get my Radiant buff on. The grapple we're using to get our woven mail on anytime we're going to be kind of like going toe-to-toe with stuff. But any kind of melee, the grapple melee, the shuriken, they'll give us Radiant, and we're using that to buff our weapons. So in this, we don't play with weapon searches, which is why we get so much flexibility with weapon choices, because our buffs are kind of inherent. The biggest thing we want from weapons is we want to choose weapons that are kind of inherently have damage of their own. So the reason that Radiant isn't always the best for dealing with these barrier champions is because they tend to do this, where they barrier because you're shooting at them, which is like, it's kind of frustratingly common for them to kind of barrier as your Radiant is like falling off. And so it can be this weird timing where you kind of miss your chance to stun them because your Radiant fell off. But so I usually like to take something that's anti-barrier if there's going to be barriers in whatever I'm doing. Overloads and unstops. Sometimes I take a weapon that can deal with it just because it's convenient. A lot of times I just rely on the inherent ability to deal with those that's in the build. The build is evergreen. It doesn't rely on the artifact whatsoever, but it does, because it's so flexible and has so many different things going on. It can take advantage of almost any artifact. I've played this over multiple seasons now, taking advantage of all kinds of different artifact traits. You can change up your weapons, the super that you use, all kinds of stuff to basically take advantage of whatever the GM modifiers are that week, whatever the artifact has in it. The flexibility of the build makes it not only evergreen, but allows you to take advantage of kind of whatever is around, regardless of what that is. So you can see I'm just clearing stuff out. I'll use my grenade to keep my damage reduction on. I'm just going to keep killing bad guys. Again, shuriken first, then shoot to get the buff. And then I'm going to go in this is the last guy in the place. I'm going to break the thing, throw shurikens at him, and you see I grapple there real quick. That was just to get woven mail on, so when he came out of the stun, if he shot me, I would have that 45% damage reduction. And that's it. We cleared the master lost sector in like 4.5 minutes with just a basic setup. This is just my most common, my favorite guns and stuff to use with this setup. So let's get into the build and let me show you how you do it. Alright folks, so let's get straight into the build, and let's start with the elephant in the room. You want this class item. This build can be played with any class item that has inmost light. It can also be played to some extent just wearing the Seer Arachne helm, just this one that just gives the Seer Arachne effect, but they're not ideal. Really, this build really comes into its own when you have this particular class item with inmost light and Seer Arachne. So to get it, the first thing you do is come into your destinations, go into the Pale Heart, and you need to do this dual destiny just one time with a friend. You can do this every week and you'll get 2 class items every time you do it. That's a great way to try to farm this class item. But you need to do this one time just to unlock getting class items. And then what you can do is go to the landing, the blooming, or the impasse, and do the overthrow events and open every single chest you see, and you'll get class items relatively quickly that way. Just do the overthrow event and open every single chest that you see the whole time. And it's really not hard to get the class item that you want anymore. It was really difficult at one time, but now once you do that dual destiny, you can talk to Ghost. Let me show you where he is. I'm just saying you can talk to Ghost here in the Lost City here. This is again in the Pale Heart, and then over here on the left you have the Lost City here. You can teleport in here. The Ghost is right here. When you talk to Ghost, you can go down here to this attunement, and I would suggest probably attuning Inmost Light. Inmost Light is good with like almost anything. Most of the best class items are Inmost Light and something. You can also attune the Seared Arachne buff if you want. This one can be really fun with also with Renewal, but probably attune Inmost Light, and you'll very highly preferentially get class items with Inmost Light on it, and just do those overthrow events while you watch your favorite Netflix show, while you watch something on Disney Plus, something like that. I have, the 2 monitors. I put on the other monitor some show that I want to watch, and then I just kind of do the overthrow events on a regular basis. You'll get tons and tons of class items. If you're focusing Inmost Light, you'll get one with Seared Arachne in no time, and then you'll be ready to make the build. So if you don't have it yet, you can, like I said, you can play this with any item that has Inmost Light. It'll still work. Inmost Light, something like Star Eater, is probably your best bet for something else. But you can do anything with Inmost Light and the build will work. You'll just have to be aware that you're going to be a lot squishier. So in harder content, it's going to be a little difficult to play. In easier content, the Seared Arachne is not even really that necessary, so you'll be fine. And then the other thing you can do is you can just wear the Seared Arachne helm. Just be aware that you'll have to play it a little bit more passively. When you have Inmost Light, you have your abilities all the time, and so the build is really an ability spam build. If you play it with the Seared Arachne helm without Inmost Light, then you won't have your abilities as much. You'll have to play it a little more passively, but you can still, every time your grapples go up, go in, fight them up, do some damage, and enjoy the build that way. So like I said, I call it Space Ninja because we're flying around, we're grappling in, we're doing backflips, we're throwing shurikens. It's a really, really fun build to go in and just look like you're some kind of super skilled ninja, even though it's the build doing most of the lifting. So we're Prismatic Hunter, and aspects-wise, we're going with Stylish Executioner. This one is obviously really good because you turn invisible all the time. When you're invisible, just remember to move. The bad guys will shoot at like the last place they saw you. So if you turn invisible and just stand there, they'll probably shoot you because they'll just be shooting where they saw you last. But if you turn invisible and you move, they won't follow you. They won't shoot you. They won't know that you're there. The invisibility lasts longer than you think. So the first thing I would tell you about this build is you want to play fast but not rush. If you're in trouble, kill somebody that's debuffed, which is almost everybody all the time. Turn invisible and just move around a little bit and just take a breath and figure out what you want to do next and make a good choice. Don't just play crazy, okay? The other thing that we play is Winter Shroud. And the reason that we play Winter Shroud is to slow the targets when we dodge, and you see slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration. That's a really big piece of this because, like I said, it's an ability spam thing. Inmost Light gives you a ton of grenade and melee regeneration when you use either of the other ones. So the big one for us is going to be grenade generation. We want our grapple up all the time. So we get a ton of grenade regeneration anytime we use a melee or a class ability. Having the class ability come back really fast allows us to keep that, because 2 melees doesn't give a 2 stack of the buff. You need 1 of each. So using our class ability all the time gives us that other stack and makes Inmost Light really, really good. So this thing, the slowing targets increases your class ability regeneration, is also a part of why we use Withering Blade, because these things slow. So every time we throw them, like I was saying, we can use it to stun overloads. We can use the dodge and then stun back to back, or dodge and then shuriken back to back to stun unstoppables. We can, anytime we get a shuriken, we can just throw it and keep slow on targets, and that will keep our Winter Shroud regenerating. So these things all like play into each other, and they keep our abilities coming back really fast, and then we're grappling pretty much as we can anytime we're kind of in the middle of stuff. So if you want to be in the middle of stuff, you want to keep your woven mail on, which means you grapple. Every time you grapple with Seared Arachne, you're going to get woven mail for 10 seconds. That's going to give you a 45% damage reduction. So this part is really important for kind of playing up in the middle of all the bad guys. Okay, so anytime you want to go in and play in the middle of all the aliens and shoot them, you can. You can do it in GM Nightfalls. You can do it in raids, dungeons, the Master Lost Sector, like I was showing you. You can play right in their face, but you have to make sure that you're keeping your grapple regenerating and you're keeping it popping up all the time. So you want this, and then what I'll say right now with this build is the one kind of like mechanical thing that you really need to do in this build to make sure you can play it is you need to set 2 different melee buttons. The game by default will give you a melee button where it kind of chooses what's best, either a charged melee or an uncharged melee. You want to set keybinds that separate them so that you can charged melee when you want and you can uncharged melee when you want. And I can't do that here. Let me move and show you guys what that looks like. And the reason we do this is so that we can control when we throw the shuriken, because if a guy's like right in your face, sometimes the one that chooses its own might want to punch them instead of throw the shuriken, but you want to throw the shuriken. So you want to have total control over that. And then the other thing is you don't want to accidentally use a charged melee when you're trying to use the grapple melee. And so you use uncharged melee to use the grapple. So I have one button that's uncharged melee like this, and one button that's charged melee, which will throw the shuriken. And when I grapple, I use the uncharged melee to do the grapple melee. And the nice thing about the grapple melee is it also counts as a charged melee attack. Okay? So anytime you grapple in, you want to try to melee somebody and have that count as a charged melee attack. That will give you Radiant because we have this. It will count as far as heavy-handed for your orbs. It'll do a whole bunch of things for you. So the fact that the attack on this grenade counts as a melee is also big to the build because everything we do is charged melees. So we have this to slow. We have the shuriken that's going to help us get our class ability back when we slow. We're able to freeze things on demand by dodging next to them and throwing a shuriken because we have Gambler's Dodge. Gambler's Dodge is going to give us a melee charge anytime we dodge near enemies. Near is not really that close. It's just kind of in the ballpark of them. But basically what I'll do to an unstoppable is I'll usually just grapple in just to get close to them, punch them when I land, dodge immediately, and then throw a shuriken. And that is going to freeze them. And when you explode the freeze, when you shoot them and the freeze shatters, they'll get stunned. And then you can kill the unstoppable that way. You don't even need unstoppable weapons, and all you have to have is your class ability ready, which comes up really, really fast in our build. We build to have this up as often as possible. And as far as kind of like muscle memory, that is like a very just like basic gameplay loop for this build is grapple in and melee, dodge, and throw a shuriken, and when everybody freezes, shoot them to shatter all the freeze. Okay? And then I always play triple jump when I'm playing PvE. So that covers our ability row here. Super-wise, you can play any super you want, actually. The build doesn't rely on supers at all. I like Deadfall. I have that on by default a lot of the time. Golden Gun is really good. Silk Strike is kind of slept on. It actually does a lot of damage, and same thing with Silence and Squall. The one, Storm's Edge here, is more of a PvP one. You can use it in PvE, but honestly, you can pick any of these, and a lot of times I pick them based on what the buffed damage type is in like the GM or the Master Lost Sector or whatever that I'm doing. So if there's a buff damage type, I'll use that to help me pick a super, or if I want something specific to go on, I'll pick it. A lot of times I default to Deadfall, but super-wise, you're totally free to choose anything you want, which is nice because you have a lot of freedom there for whatever the content is and whatever you need to bring to the fire team. So then Fragments. Let's start here. We have Facet of Ruin. This one is going to make our Shatter from Stasis Crystals do more damage, and it's going to increase the area of ignitions. So ignitions can go on your your Transcendence grenade, when it turns to solar, it can ignite things. So bigger area effect means it blows up more guys with that. And then the extra damage and size of the shatter is awesome because we freeze guys all the time. Like I said, a normal gameplay loop is grapple in and melee, and then dodge and throw a shuriken, which will freeze everyone. And when you shoot them, they'll explode. All the shatters will shatter each other. They'll all hit each other for a bunch of damage. You can actually nuke groups of guys with that shatter. This is helping that damage be high enough to kill things and make sure that it kills things as we get into higher level content. This is another highly necessary. This is a given facet or fragment. The Facet of Dawn here gives you Radiant every time you hit someone with a powered melee. That is your shurikens. That's also the melee on your grapple. So when you grapple, I know I said you push the uncharged melee button, but when it hits, it counts as a charged melee. It hits in AoE and unravels everybody that it hits, and that counts as a powered melee for Radiant. So you can grapple in, punch, and shoot, and you'll have your shots buffed by, this is a 25% buff, so this is really nice. So you keep that on basically all the time. The other thing I said is you'll notice when I play the build, most of the time it's throw a shuriken and then start shooting. The throw a shuriken is to get this buff and then start shooting while we have the 25% damage buff. This one, protection, is not totally necessary. You could change this to something else if you wanted. I find it's nice when you go into a group of guys to just get a little bit of damage resistance. This is like a 10% damage resist. And so I generally have this one on. This is a really nice one to have, balance. The big thing here is rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. Our grenade is grapple. When we grapple in and we melee, you can kill groups of lower level enemies, like groups of adds, with this, and that counts for this. So you'll get a bunch of grenade energy back for doing it, which is awesome, helps you get your grapple back even faster. And again, we want to grapple all the time. We want to spam grapple. And then the last one, Facet of Mending. This one isn't totally required, but I do really like it. Grenade final blows cure you, so that means they heal you. And this is true for the grapple melee. So when you grapple in, like I said, you can kill groups of adds with it. When you do, you get healed from Facet of Mending. This one can be something else if you want something else in here in particular. So this one, protection, and this one, mending, can be something else, but these are defaults. I rarely change them. The main thing that I change from time to time when I'm based on content is going to be my super. Most of the rest of this stuff I just leave all the time for all content. And then for armor and mods, we'll get to weapons in a second. Let's start with the armor. The first thing is how do we want to use our armor charges? So we use our armor charges with utility kickstart. So every time we dodge, we are going to get about half-ish. I think it's 35%. So I guess about a third-ish of our utility back, because we're always going to have 3 armor charges because we produce tons and tons of orbs with this build, and I'll show you why in a second. But we use this. It helps us get our dodge back faster, and we want to use our dodge next to enemies all the time. So we want to go in, we want to fight next to them, we want to dodge next to them, throw shurikens, which will freeze them, shatter the freeze, kill guys, and because we have Gambler's Dodge, every time we dodge next to an enemy, we'll get a shuriken. So we can always dodge and immediately throw a shuriken anytime we want. There are times when we just dodge and shoot. And of course, there are times when we just throw a shuriken. But no matter what, if you dodge next to an enemy, you're going to be able to follow it up with a shuriken because of Gambler's Dodge. And we use this to dodge as much as possible. The next guy we shoot and kill after we dodge is going to give us an orb because of Reaper. And then finally, Powerful Attraction makes it so every time we dodge, we suck up all the orbs in the area, of which there will be a lot because we produce tons and tons of orbs in this build. Like I said, when I run GM Nightfalls, I'm usually producing 2 to 3 times as many orbs as anyone else on the team at like minimum. And oftentimes it'll be like, finish a GM Nightfall, you killed 250 enemies, you generated like 110 orbs or 130 orbs or something like that, right? So you're producing oftentimes somewhere in the ballpark of like half as many orbs as guys that you kill. So it's a ton of orbs. And you suck those up every time you dodge, which also gets you ready to dodge again because it gets your armor charges stacked up so that the next time you dodge, you'll once again have the full 3 stack for utility kickstart. Then we'll go into legs. So this is a big departure for me from the other builds that I've seen that are like this, where I haven't seen anybody else that plays the utility kickstart, even though I think it is definitely the best way to play this build, to keep your inmost light stacked and always charging your other abilities, and to slow and freeze and all that stuff. But every time we dodge, because we have powerful attraction, we're going to suck up all the orbs, and so we take recuperation, which is going to heal us for that. So that's how we get our sustain as a hunter. Hunters, a lot of times, because of the way that stats work, a lot of times when you want high mobility and you have to have high resilience, you should never play anything without 10 resilience in PvE. You have to sacrifice recovery, because those 3 stats, you can't really stack all 3 of them very easily. So a lot of times your recovery is low, so you need some kind of things to heal you. Recuperation is quite often the case for Hunter, what you want. So we have this, and every time we dodge, we're going to suck up all of the copious amounts of orbs in the area and heal ourselves. So basically every time we dodge, we kind of heal ourselves to full. Each orb we pick up is going to give us grenade energy, which is awesome. This one is 10% grenade energy for every orb. So that, again, helps us get our grapple up really fast. When you're playing this build and playing it even reasonably well, you basically have Woven Mail on all the time, because your grapple is ready to use again before the 10 seconds of Woven Mail falls off from the last time you used it. So you're keeping this 45% damage resistance on you at all times, and that's what allows you to actually like go in and fight and play against the enemies in the higher content, instead of like just hiding in the back and plinking with a bow or something like that. And then we play Absolution, which is going to give us 5% of all 3 abilities every time we pick it up. The reason that we do this is because Insulation doesn't really give us any more on our class ability, and we want the orbs to give us class ability sauce. So this will give us class ability. It'll also give us another grenade on top of that, so we're getting like 15% grenade every time we pick up an orb. And then we have, this is a great place to put a resilience mod, which costs 4, because we're not using that many energy slots in here. So picking up orbs is going to give us a whole bunch of ability regeneration, and it's going to heal us every time, which is great. This, as far as the damage resistances, I usually put a 3 stat one in here. And then these ones, I mostly just play Void Arc Solar. I find that that's plenty for doing content. I was spamming GM Nightfalls all last weekend to get palindromes to try to get the roll that I wanted, and I really just played this the whole time. When you know what you're going to do, when you know like what the buffs on the GM Nightfall are or something like that, you can drop one of these for a concussive is usually a really good choice, and then you make sure that you have the one that's whatever the damage buff for the enemies is, and then the other one that's the most common way that you're going to take damage. You can always do that, but I find that it's not really necessary because we have Woven Mail on all the time, and Woven Mail gives us such a good damage resist that just having each of these, which gives 15% damage resistance to each of these types, is enough to stay alive and be able to fight and go in and actually like kill things face to face. Arm wise, this one we're only going to be able to have a 1 cost stat mod in general, because we're going to play, obviously I have room for a 2, but we're going to play double heavy handed. That what this does is it lowers the cooldown on generating an orb from a powered melee. So this makes it every 5 seconds. We definitely want that because we're throwing powered melees all the time, and we're going to kill stuff, and we want the orbs from that. So you definitely want 2 heavy-handed, and then I do this one. Causing damage with a powered melee attack reduces grenade cooldown, because the melee attack from the grapple grenade is a powered melee attack, which will give us cooldown, and then the shurikens also give us cooldown. So again, we're getting that grapple back as fast as possible. We're getting grapple back very, very quickly all the time to keep Woven Mail on ourselves and to use the damage. The melee attack on your grapple actually does really great damage. So everything is feeding into grapple as much as possible, dodge as much as possible, throw shurikens all the time, right? This is a true ability spam build. Some builds they call ability spam and you get to like use some abilities, like you get to use them frequently. This one is like all the time. Using abilities all the time. You're just using your guns to kind of finish guys off or shoot from cover when you're low just for a second, that kind of stuff. You're really playing in enemies' faces a lot. And then this last one, I put a siphon that matches whatever my primary weapon is. Okay, you do use your primary weapon the most usually in this build. So whatever my primary weapon is, as the build is right now, it's palindrome, and so that's what I have an arc one. But whatever I pick as my primary weapon, I match it with an arc siphon. I do 2 ammo finders. I do a heavy and a special ammo finder, and what that does is allow me to use these weapons more or less as much as I want. You saw in the Master Lost Sector that I did that I was kind of just using my Dragon's Breath all the time. It's because with this ammo finder I have plenty of ammo for it, so I can just use it quite a bit. And I do the same thing in GMs and stuff like that, where I go in and fight, and I'm generating lots of orbs. I'm getting my bricks, and so I can use my special and my heavy kind of willy-nilly if I want. But as far as generating orbs, I always match the primary, because a lot of times you'll go in and melee or something, and something will have just a little bit of health, and you just want to shoot it once quick and kill it. So that is your armor and your mods. That gets you all set up. Weapon-wise, none of these matter, to be honest. None of them matter. It's all preference. But let me show you what my preferences are to give you an idea of kind of the best and most fun ways to play it. First off, Dragon's Breath. This is my favorite exotic to play with, this exotic weapon to play with this build by far, because you can shoot it into packs of guys or bosses or whatever, and then go do something else, right? So I can shoot it at the boss, and then I can go grapple melee into ads and fight them and stuff, and this thing is just nuking away on the boss, doing ignitions over and over again, right? And so this is by far my favorite exotic to use with this build, and my favorite heavy weapon to use with this build. If you need something else for, I don't know, champions or a setup to do optimal DPS with your partners in a raid or something like that, you can change it. None of the weapons are required or anything for this build. You can pick whatever you want. But this one is definitely, I would say, try it. It's really fun. It's really, really good. The thing I would say to be careful about is this thing is going to make your ignitions bigger, your Facet of Ruin, and the ignitions from Dragon's Breath will kill you. And not hurt you, kill you. And so probably one of like the highest ways that I've died in this build is killing myself with Dragon's Breath. So I'll shoot a Dragon's Breath, and then I'll grapple into melee or something like that about when it's done, but I missed it by like 1 tick, and 1 more ignition will go off and kill me, that kind of thing. Or you go to shoot like a boss with it, and some little tiny ad does the Secret Service thing where they run in and dive in front of you as you go to shoot a rocket at the boss. It hits them right in front of you, and then it immediately blows up and kills you. Those kinds of things are basically, they're the primary ways I've died with this build, is killing yourself with Dragon's Breath. So be careful with those ignitions, but I do really love this weapon because it allows you to put it on a boss and go do something else, run around, kill ads, kite the boss, whatever, and it'll just keep doing very respectable damage on the boss. This one, if you have a palindrome that's explosive payload Master of Arms, use it. It's an extremely good gun. Master of Arms gives a buff anytime you kill enemies with any weapon. So like if your Dragon's Breath explodes and kills 2 guys, you get a double stack of Master of Arms buff. The first stack gives 15% damage, which is awesome. The second stack buffs it up to 25%, which is incredible. So this gun is right now, I farmed all weekend for this gun. I got really bad luck. I had to farm a ton to get one. But this is by far my favorite gun to play as a primary with this build right now, because it does really good damage. Obviously, we don't play weapon surges, so one thing we want with this build is guns that do good damage without weapon surges, right? So this one is a really high damage primary weapon because it has a damage trait in both columns, right? So in this one, you get a damage trait. This is about a 10 to 15% damage buff, about a little over 10% on a headshot, 15% on a body shot. And then this one is a 15 to 25% damage buff, depending on how much you have it stacked. And so getting a damage buff in both of these makes the gun very, very strong without weapon surges, which is what you generally want with this build. And then you're going to buff it, of course, with Radiant almost every time you shoot it. It's going to be buffed with Radiant, so you're going to get another 25% there. And your weapons hit plenty hard, right? Especially when you're spamming abilities all the time. But this one is my favorite. The other thing that's really nice is when you're using all this stuff, you're grappling in, you're killing groups of guys with your grapple melee, you're dodging, you're freezing guys, killing them. That freeze, that shatter damage from the frozen guys, that's darkness damage. The grapple melee is darkness damage. So your abilities are giving you tons and tons of darkness transcendence energy. Okay, this in the bottom right here, or the bottom left here, the orange one on the right. So you get tons and tons of darkness energy. And you need to get the light energy from guns. So for that reason, I really love having an energy primary, right? So an arc, void, or solar primary, because it helps you get your light energy really fast. It lets you be transcendent all the time. If not that, then use a kinetic primary. Don't use a stasis or strand primary up here. You can. And then you can use something like, I'll use these rocket pistols. I love these rocket pistols, but I'll use like this Lotus Eater or this Indebted Kindness, and I'll use those things, and I'll just shoot them and kill guys to get my light energy up. You can do that, but I would definitely recommend a kinetic weapon up here. And if your primary is not energy, so if you have a special weapon down here, so like the Lotus Eater, the Indebted Kindness, fusion rifle, something like that. And then up here, I have the Call. I really like this one because Slice gets activated when you use your class ability, which we're doing all the time. And Slice then severs a target, which makes them do, I think, 40% less damage. And so that thing is really nice. So you dodge and you shoot them with the Call. You give a 40% damage debuff on them again. Again, you now have Woven Mail, and you've debuffed their damage. Nobody can hurt you now when you do that, and you can just stand there right in front of them and fight them, like I was killing those barrier champs just standing right in front of them. To give an example of another way to play this build, this is another of my favorite kind of setups for it. Everything over here is basically the same, except you see now I have a kinetic siphon because my primary is a kinetic. In this case, I'm using a Midnight Coup. This is another one that I would really highly recommend. Again, damage buffs in both columns. The first one, explosive payload. The second one, frenzy. The reason I really like frenzy is you don't have to do anything. So when enemies are kind of weak, you just kill them too fast to need damage buffs anyway. But when you get into harder content and your fights are longer and longer, frenzy just procs if you're in combat long enough, right? If you just do damage or get hit every 5 seconds, you'll stay in combat, and this one gives a 15% damage buff. So this gun is good without needing to proc anything. You don't need to kill anything a certain way. You don't need to do anything. Just frenzy just turns on when you're in combat long enough, which tends to happen in like the higher level content. That makes this gun really good. You can see it's an absurdly high level for me. It's level 226. I use this gun all the time. This one is farmable in Onslaught, in the traditional Onslaught, and you go to Zavala in the tower and tell him you want to focus a Midnight Coup, and then you just do Onslaught, which is one of the most fun game modes anyway, until you get one that's explosive payload frenzy, and then you prosper. I have this Lotus Eater that I use sometimes. I have this Indebted Kindness from that dungeon. I forget what it's called. Warlord's Ruin or something like that. From that dungeon. And again, the Dragon's Breath. That's my favorite. So that's the build. The big thing is use your abilities a ton. Grapple in, get your Woven Mail, dodge, throw shurikens. Enjoy the Radiant buff to buff your weapons. And you can play this, like I said, anywhere. Oh, I guess I'll tell you for this particular season. The artifact, you can pick whatever seems good. For this particular season, I would just take all of the strand stuff. Take every like strand thing. And then the tangle, you'll create tangles because you'll be unraveling guys every time you use your grapple melee. So you'll create lots of tangles. Just use all the strand stuff from the artifact. The rest don't really matter. Use this thing to buff your weapons when you're going into harder content. So I use this to buff the Dragon's Breath, even though its damage buff doesn't match the damage buffs for the weak, or whatever, the sidearm thing. I really like having an anti-barrier weapon, so I use this with the rocket pistols to break barrier champs, or to there's those like Taken captains that put the bubble on the ground and they stand in the bubble. You can shoot into the bubble with these rocket pistols, which is really, really helpful because those enemies are a real pain. So doing stuff like that, just shooting through shields and stuff like that, I really like having this anti-barrier weapon. But basically just use these to get a damage buff from whatever the content is. So that's it. You get tons of flexibility with weapons. You can basically choose anything you want, but like I said, ideally you'll choose weapons that have really good damage on their own, especially as far as primaries go. Specials and heavies tend to do tons of damage no matter what. Your primary, it's really good if it does good damage without surges. You'll be radiant all the time. Super wise, you can pick whatever you want. These are pretty much fixed, except this one you can change if you want. Mending can be anything. Protection can be anything that you want. And then very last thing, I guess, stats. You want 10 resilience and you want 10 discipline. Because like I said, our goal here is to spam grapple, right? We want to grapple and grapple melee guys as much as possible. Recovery, we don't need whatsoever. We're relying on picking up orbs to heal ourselves and mending the way that I have it to heal myself. Intellect doesn't really matter for anybody in the game because you get your super back fast enough anyway. Strength is a dead stat in this build. You don't need it at all because you're going to be dodging to get your shurikens, so you don't need any strength. And so essentially what this comes down to in this build is you get 10 resilience, you want 10 discipline, and you get your mobility as high as you can when you have 10 in each of those stats. So that's all you need stat-wise for the build. It's really not bad to get it all, especially on Hunter. That's kind of like the default thing that you're going for anyway. So yeah, that's it. Go out, try this build, enjoy it, and I'll leave you guys with a replay of me running this build again in that same Master Nightfall, but just with different weapon setup. I'll show it to you with the Midnight Coup, and I'll use Thunderlord on it, and just show you guys basically just a different way to do it. Because the build has so much flexibility, you can always tweak it just a little bit to match any content that you want. So the first Lost Sector that I showed you guys at the beginning of the video, I didn't really match. I just played it in my favorite setup, which is this one. And then in the second video, I'll show you where I tailored it a little bit more to the Lost Sector and played it again and cleared it very slightly faster, but a little bit easier and more reliably because I had a machine gun to deal with the overpowers. I wasn't just relying on my shurikens and stuff. But yeah, like, you can always deal with anything. You can always deal with unstops, with overloads. You can deal with barriers by radiant if you're ballsy, but usually I bring an anti-barrier weapon. And then yeah, when you go into a GM Nightfall or something like that, you're a real great boon to your team because you can deal with all champions, you can clear ads, you can do boss damage, you can if somebody dies in a bad spot, you really reliably debuff them with the Winter Shroud or the Shuriken or the Grapple. So you're really reliably able to debuff someone and kill them to get Stylish Executioner, turn invisible, and then go get a res on a person that's in a potentially tough spot. So yeah, you're really giving a lot to your team as far as increasing the likelihood that they're able to finish a GM Nightfall or a raid or a dungeon or whatever. So yeah, go out and try this build. It's also, just to be honest, the most fun build in Destiny, hands down. Go out and give it a try, and I'll leave you guys with this replay of that Master Lost Sector again. All right, so here we go with the running of the Master Lost Sector again. Again, I'm just running the Master Lost Sectors to show you guys kind of content that's at the highest power level in the game. The 2050 is the same as a GM Nightfall as far as power level. And I showed you that I have the Deadfall shot, the Void super on. And the reason is because one of the damage types in this run at yesterday when I did it was Void. And your kinetic weapons get a damage buff if your super matches one of the damage types. So I made my super match one of the damage types, which is going to buff my Midnight Coup here. And then just went in and shot him up. You'll see, again, Shuriken and then shoot, right? Grapple and then shoot. And it's so that I always have Radiant on my thing too. That was your basic gameplay loop that I mentioned to you guys, where it's grapple, dodge, Shuriken, you freeze guys, and then you shoot them, usually just with your primary to make them explode, to shatter the freeze, and you'll kill big groups of guys with that. You can see my darkness energy is already almost full. I have a kinetic weapon, so my light energy isn't full yet, but it's close. And so my Transcendence now is ready already. I just got in here. Super is over half. And I'm just going to shoot this guy a little bit because I wanted to get rid of him if I could before I fought all the ads here that spawn. And so I'm going in. I'm going to grab a Tangle and throw it. And then grapple in, hit him, dodge, shuriken, freeze everybody. And then start shooting my machine gun, which I brought to deal with the overloads because that's kind of one of the season things, right? It's on the artifact. So that was super simple, right? We just smoked that whole group of ads, no problem. This I'm going to throw and use the grapple on the throw. That makes your grapple not incur a cooldown. Shoot at this guy with the machine gun. Realize I didn't reload it because I'm a chump. So back up and reload it. And then just reset. Don't do anything stupid. Shurikens again. Stun the Minotaur, which is like the worst of the overloads. The Minotaurs are terrible. This time I was like, okay, make sure you reload the machine gun instead of being a clown out here. Go in, get Radiant, shoot at the guy. Okay, kill him. And then I'm going to super and throw a shuriken at these guys. The super is just to get a buff against the whole group of guys here. Switch to the sidearm to break barrier and stun that guy. And I'm backing up. You are really tanky, but that doesn't mean just be completely stupid when you're in content that overlevels you by 15 levels. So I'm just dealing with I forget what they're called, the chickens, the wyvern. I'm dealing with chicken bot carefully because wyverns absolutely nuke you, and I don't want to get myself killed. You can see grapples ready again, so I backed up. And then I'm going to shoot the wyvern. Again, be cautious with the enemies that are really nasty, like the wyverns. But I grapple in and kill him. The grapple melee does really good damage. And you get the woven mail when you grapple, not when you hit somebody. So as soon as I used grapple, even if he managed to hit me a couple times on the way in, it wasn't going to kill me because I already have the woven mail on. So in this case, I thought maybe I could stun and kill both the barriers at the same time. I realized pretty quickly that's not the case. You see I'm using my grapple to keep woven mail on myself while I fight both of these guys. But I can just kind of stand here and fight them, right? I finished that one. Grapple again. So yeah, these guys, they don't ever get to shoot at me without woven mail, right? Which means that I can just fight them. Again, finish that guy. And then we're in the last room. Transcendence is ready. Super is almost ready again. So we're ready for a really big fight in here. We grapple to get our woven mail. And we're shooting a couple ads. I think what I wanted was my super before I went after the boss because it was so close. I was like, I might as well just kill some ads and get the super first. Again, shuriken to radiant and then attack. In this case, super, and I start shooting the boss, doing good damage on him. It is good to move around. Enemies will miss you in this game if you strafe around a little bit while you shoot. But eventually, go in grapple melee because it does awesome damage, and then hit him with a shuriken. We killed the boss. I'm going to Transcendence here and use the Transcendence to finish off kind of the rest of the ads, right? I have two barriers shooting like a void nuke at me. That's what's hitting me so hard. But I killed the one, throw that, and then I'm going to grenade this guy to get my buff. And then I pull machine gun. I didn't load it again. I'm so used to playing Dragon's Breath that you don't ever have to load. But yeah, go in, throw a grenade at him to get the woven mail, dodge by him, and then just finish him off, being stylish, being a ninja. And that's it, right? This build absolutely smashes. That's in 2050 level content, which means I play basically like that in like a GM Nightfall. I just go in and mix it up with the bad guys. I don't have to play super passive, and you can just annihilate them. So go out and try this build, guys. It's the most fun way to play Destiny 2. It's strong enough to play in any content, and I really think you'll have a good time with it. Remember, you want Inmost Light Pseudarachne here. We went over the mods, we went over the weapons, we went over the build. Have fun with it. Let me know how it works for you guys.